Hi, good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining today's webinar. As you can see, we'll be talking about layered security, a topic that's been around for a while with defense in depth, but today's presenter, Wojciech, will certainly provide some relevant new information on that. And looking forward to the presentation. If this is your first time joining us, this is the last security webinar in the series we've had for 2022. So looking forward to next year, always looking for your feedback if you have other topics you'd like to have us present on. And with that, we'll get started. So Wojciech, if you don't mind, we'll advance the slide. So what are we trying to accomplish today? Really the same goals we usually have here. Provide information that's impactful for you guys. What's relevant to what you are facing today. And based on those two items, demonstrate our ability to partner with you. I think Wojciech will talk about this in a few slides here, but it's no surprise we are facing challenges in security every day. It's nonstop. Staffing is an issue. So with all those things, our goal is to be that partner, help you navigate through those challenges, and be there as that advisor. So the agenda in a short while, my name is Joe Paquette. We'll introduce Wojciech in a moment. Again, we're talking about defense in depth. We'll talk about the basic concepts, some of the best practices, and sort of weave in some use cases based on how we are supporting clients. And if you do have any questions and answers, we can hold those to the end, or you're welcome to put those in the question or chat box and we'll get through them. If we are not able to answer those during the presentation, they are recorded. We will reach out to you individually after that. So before each presentation or the registration, you guys will answer some questions, and we like to present these so you can see where you are with your peers. We held this same sort of similar topic a few months ago, and the answers were a little different, particularly the first one. So, do you think leveraging a defense in depth strategy could improve your security posture? Everyone says yes, which was different than last time, so that's great. Are defense in depth strategies planned to be implemented in your organization in the near future? A little over half are saying yes. And then lastly, do you feel that you are effectively incorporating people and process into your strategy? And almost 70% are saying no. And that last one is pretty key. Wojciech and I have discussed this at length. People and process are very paramount to your success, and I know he'll be talking about that in a little bit. So before we get started, a background on the organization. Clearly you can see from the tagline here, our goal, our mantra is to be flexible, resilient, and help you become productive. We're enabling that workplace of the future. We know in the last few years, the game has changed tremendously. We have the resources and expertise to help you through that process. So very quickly, a snapshot. 80 offices worldwide, approaching 5,000 employees. And I'll state on that, our goal is to still be that local organization with local support. We just have a global reach, and we have the ability to pull in resources throughout the world and through different skill sets. And Wojciech, if you go to the next slide, we'll visually see what those are. So here's some of the core areas of New Era. Today we're spending time on the security line safety, bottom right, which is where SecureBlu sits. But all throughout the journey, we are a professional services organization, and that holds throughout our CloudBlu cloud services, our managed SLA-based services, and some of the core technologies we support are collaboration, unified communication, so high-end audiovisual systems, Microsoft Teams integration into existing phone systems, traditional networking, you can see through network and data center and structured cabling, and as mentioned before, We are a professional services organization, so tapping into the resources that we have. All set, Wojciech? So I'll take a moment just to talk about at a high level the SecureBlu practice, and Wojciech is going to touch upon these as well, and how we can, how the topics integrate into this practice. So at a very high level, we have three core areas of SecureBlu: security advisory, managed service infrastructure, and managed detection and response. So Wojciech, if you don't mind going to the next slide. The advisory services practice, think of point-in-time engagements, virtual CISO opportunities. How can we help you get from where you are today, understand the challenges you have, and get to an end goal? You can see some of those engagements like penetration testing, vulnerability assessments, compliance services, very targeted to an end goal. The next slide, you will see our managed services infrastructure practice. And just like it says, help us or allow us to offload some of those tasks that your team can't get to today. We talked about staffing shortages. So whether it's managing a set of firewalls, managing your DNS environment, cloud security posture is a big offering with our clients today. And down far right, interesting, is physical security and line safety, taking that responsibility of that technology away from your team. So again, think of managed service infrastructure as the ability for us to provide those services for you. And MDR, growing practice at New Era, one we're very proud of, one that our clients receive great value from. So as it states in the description, we become the cyber SOC for your team. We are ingesting data, analyzing through automation and orchestration what threats you have coming into your environment, and then helping you harden your security posture by partnering with you during this process. So MDR is our product, our SecureBlu product, and would love every opportunity to talk to you in greater detail about that offering. And with that, Wojciech, I'm looking forward to today's topic. I'm glad you're here today, so I'm going to turn it over to you, and thanks to everybody in advance.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you all for joining today's session. So the topic of this webinar is defense in-depth strategies. When thinking about the definition of defense in-depth, and it's a definition that's been around for decades, one usually thinks about layers of security. So this is a definition I pulled from Wikipedia. There are a number of sources out there. If you Google this topic, a number of different definitions will come up, but the most prevalent one is the most prevalent theme is layers of security controls. So when thinking about defense in depth, most IT professionals and security professionals today think about layers of security controls, and they think about technical layers, about technology, overlaying layers of defense so that if the first layer gets breached, the second layer provides a level of protection. The concept is actually, quite old. I mean, it goes back to, has its roots in military strategy. A great example of defense in depth. I'm sure most of you watched Home Alone. Kevin actually built his entire strategy for defending his home around defense in depth. He secured the perimeter of the house, and then he layered on multiple defense mechanisms inside the house, so that he was lighting the attack, hair on fire, and he was dropping irons from the staircase and things like that. That is actually a great example of defense in depth. A better definition of defense in depth, and one that I really like, I pulled this one from NIST, and this one focuses on people, technology, and operations. So rather than thinking about multiple layers of technical controls being stacked up on top of one another, we are now talking about people and operations, or in this case, people and process, which are really critical in in defending from advanced adversaries and advanced threats. So the key topics of my discussion today are the technology and technical defenses and things we can do and the layers we can put in place to defend our infrastructures. That is still very relevant and very timely. And even though the concept is decades old, it's still extremely relevant today. But the aspect of people and process cannot be overlooked, because without the people operating those products or those defenses, and without robust processes to ensure that the right things get done at the right time, the whole strategy basically falls apart. The technical controls have never been enough and are just not enough to defend ourselves from adversaries. So in talking about technology, we can talk about traditional use cases and then some new developments, some new technical developments, some of which are the emergence of public cloud and the adoption of public cloud, and the benefits it brings in terms of more advanced machine learning capabilities and robust machine learning and AI capabilities, and also the MDR operators themselves. New Era has an MDR practice, as Joe was showing at the beginning, and the nature of that practice and the way it differs from more traditional approaches to offloading security to third-party providers such as MSSPs. That is also a game changer, I think, or we think, in the industry, and that also can provide some value and benefits. In terms of traditional uses and adoption of technology for defense in depth, again, this is more of a legacy concept, but way back when security was in its infancy and these topics and concepts were still being developed, what security defenders focused on was network-based defenses, basically focusing primarily on layer 3 security. And although there were exceptions, usually we would not extend our defenses into higher levels or higher OSI stack layers. For example, at the application layer, we would not be deploying defenses such as web application firewalls and things of that nature, which is often referred to as defense in breadth. So again, more traditional, and those of you who have been around for a couple of decades, like myself, will probably remember our network-based strategies for defending our infrastructures, way back. In today's world, many of us operate our infrastructures in the cloud. And while some companies are still wary of the cloud, and that primarily comes from just the lack of understanding of the cloud. Cloud has a lot to offer in itself when it comes to defense in depth and stacking of multiple layers of protection on top of each other, and obviously the capabilities it has, or the adoption of machine learning or introduction of machine learning and AI that cloud providers bundle with their public cloud offerings is an extremely powerful tool. So throughout this presentation is actually a point I would like to make. I will be discussing specific technologies and vendors. New Era is obviously a large company, and we have partnerships with multiple vendors, and we support various technologies. So the products that I will be discussing today are just really examples of solutions that offer that you could deploy to as you are evolving your defense in-depth strategy. But these are really just examples for demonstration purposes only. The number of tools is obviously enormous, and what you run in your environment may differ from what we are discussing here. Going back to machine learning, Microsoft Defender for X. The X stands for Defender for IoT, Defender for Endpoint, Defender for Cloud, or for Identity. Microsoft has a very robust suite of products focused on detection and response, and most of those tools, to my knowledge, have machine learning running in the background. For example, with Defender for the endpoint, there are so-called fusion rules that fire when a particular, several incidents of a particular type are detected over a period of time, and in some cases, the time between detection could be hours or even days. By themselves, those detections may be meaningless or may seem benign to security practitioners or IT professionals who are receiving those alerts. But when aggregated over time and coupled with machine learning that highlights trends around those individual incidents, that really becomes a very powerful tool and gives you a lot more visibility and insight into what's really happening in your environment and where your defenses may be getting breached. Azure Sentinel is obviously the Microsoft's cloud native SIEM technology that also has a ton of machine learning running in the background, and in this case will highlight trends that other tools would otherwise miss. AWS GuardDuty is a similar product from Amazon, also extremely powerful in highlighting trends and especially the low and slow attacks that you might see kind of play out over time. What I have on my next slide is an example of how we integrate various technologies within the SecureBlu MDR practice. So this is very similar to the slide that Joe was showing earlier, that at the bottom, in the bottom row, shows the different types of infrastructures that we can protect and defend through our MDR practice. Cloud infrastructure stands for AWS, Azure, Google, the public clouds. On-premise infrastructure, these are the traditional data centers and home offices that we obviously still operate, many of us. Remote workforce stands for users working from home, especially now with in the post-COVID era, a lot of our users just work remotely. Cloud productivity, that's Office 365 or Google, the old G Suite, Google Workspace, and then IoT, OT, SCADA. Those are deployments of operation technology, smart buildings with a lot of IoT or SCADA. Industrial type infrastructure deployments. What you see at the top are different types of security controls that provide detection and response capabilities within these different types of infrastructures. So what you have at the top is different types of EDR, endpoint detection and response technologies. This is a sample of some of the technologies, some of the products that our practice supports. The row below is where you have StealthWatch and Vectra. These are NDRs, network detection and response products that basically over time build baseline and watch traffic flowing over the wire and build baselines and highlight anomalies on the network. Then you have in a third row, you have on the cloud infrastructure, you have Prisma Cloud, which is a cloud security posture management product coupled with some native capabilities in Microsoft and Azure, such as Azure Sentinel or GuardDuty. Microsoft Defender for Identity, moving on onto protecting on-premise infrastructures and remote workforce. Cisco Umbrella for monitoring of your DNS traffic and requests. And then moving over to the left, Microsoft Defender for 365, together with Vectra, which also has a product for O365. And then in the last section, Armis and Microsoft Defender for IoT. These are purpose-built products focusing specifically on IoT and OT. The interesting thing about this model is that the different layers can be extended horizontally. So, for example, the top row with EDRs can be extended all the way to cover IoT, OT, and SCADA if you are running, if you are still running servers or virtual machines on those networks. The same goes for StealthWatch or Vectra, which are, again, NDR, network detection and response technologies, which can be extended to IoT, OT, and SCADA. Basically, by adopting, obviously not all of these tools, but possibly, potentially one of each at each layer, you now have great capabilities and ability to provide protection and visibility, and in some cases robust response capabilities to the different types of infrastructures that you could be operating. So again, this is just an example and really a sample of the different products that we support. I just wanted to use it to highlight how, when it comes to technology, the different layers can augment and complement each other. Moving on to new developments, I mentioned the role of MDR operators in defense in depth. So the traditional model with the MSSPs is now being kind of replaced with managed detection and response operators. By adopting a technology stack and a model that I was showing earlier with stacking of different technologies, market-leading products and technologies from various providers on top of each other, we now have wide visibility into large data samples, large data sets. We have deep visibility. We can span multiple types of environments, different types of environments, and we can now use that data to our advantage in aggregate. Also, because we are still operators who service many different clients in many verticals and who operate many different types of environments, we have a lot of experience with various types of scenarios across many different types of environments. So if we did a poll on this webinar, how many of you have, for example, dealt with an advanced adversary attack, attacking your infrastructure, let's say a state-sponsored actor, last week. Hopefully, all of you would say that you have not, right? And then the next question: how many of you have dealt with a ransomware attack where half of your infrastructure was compromised and encrypted before you're actually able to intervene and start on triaging and removing the adversary? Hopefully, the answer would likewise be that none of you have experienced that recently. In our case, that is something we do every day, that we help clients, we help companies detect and respond to advanced, in some cases, very advanced threats and attacks on a daily basis. The last bullet here, the emergence of XDR, the Extended Detection and Response Platform. The slide I was showing earlier with the different layers of market-leading products providing layers of detection and response, that is what that is about. So I have an example of a mature XDR product, Extended Detection and Response Platform, that powers managed detection and response practices, right? So SecureBlu, this is our own homegrown solution that we built. It provides a single pane of glass to our SOC analysts, right? So where in the past, or in many practitioners have to jump from one screen to another, from one portal to another, to monitor and respond to various incidents. What we have is a single pane of glass, and that is truly a game changer in our ability to quickly respond and triage incidents. We operate a serverless infrastructure, which allows us to keep the core stack really small and secure, because the need to manage and maintain virtual machines is no longer present. And the ability, obviously our own security matters. How we secure our backend infrastructure, how we secure our practice matters to you, because as we provide services to you, you want to know that the provider itself is secure and operates in a secure manner. We have, again, by aggregating data and alerts and incidents from multiple environments and clients, we have visibility into various data sources, which we can use to build additional use cases by collecting indicators of compromise from open source intelligence and from some closed sources, coupled with our own detections. We can build some really robust and really advanced use cases. So in a pie chart, you see different, basically different capabilities and features of our XDR platform. I will be speaking to some of these later on in my presentation. Automation is definitely key. That's why you see that robot up there on top of the chart. Automation, in our case, through CI/CD, is a capability that is extremely powerful and allows us to respond to threats and alerts very quickly. So this is yet another example. This is actually a module, a tab in our client portal, in our homegrown client portal. What we have developed is a term we call enablers of compromise. So this is a label that we put on detections that by themselves look pretty benign and do not indicate that there's any threat or adversary operating in the environment. But when put together, they may indicate that there's actually something going on, and you know, it needs to be investigated. So what we are basically doing, and again, this is just an example, and you know, this is obviously proprietary based on our own knowledge and experience and expertise. We are, as an MDR practice, starting to get into predictive analytics, which is the holy grail of security, really, of this space. If you can predict when someone will attack you or someone will compromise you, you can obviously take steps to prevent that from happening, you know, stop that from happening and protect yourself in advance. So again, this is a proprietary example from our own, you know, practice, but that is what that is the kind of space. Those are the kinds of concepts you know, and prototypes that MDR providers are now, you know, playing with and applying successfully. So going back to the beginning of my presentation, I talked about the importance of people and process in defense in depth, in building a robust defense in depth strategy. We are obviously all affected by staffing shortages, whether it comes to IT, security, you know, and some maybe more advanced skill sets within security, which, you know, in some areas it's virtually impossible to find security practitioners to address some very specific, you know, fringe use cases like content development around, you know, detection and response, for example. DevSecOps is a whole different area, right? DevOps, you know, building robust cloud-based infrastructures, coupled with building, you know, building around strong security principles, or in our case, building a practice to provide security services to clients. Those skills are extremely hard to source, and if you find them, they are not easy to keep. Which is where, again, the security providers provide, you know, have the advantage of being able to and having the resources to pool those types of individuals together and apply them at scale. When it comes to mean time to detect and mean time to respond, right? So that's what those two acronyms stand for. In a traditional model, and I think I have a slide on this as well. The time to detect an adversary operating in the environment, that used to be, you know, a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago, we would measure that time to detect in usually in months or weeks. You obviously want to shorten the amount of time it takes you to detect that there is a problem, and you want to make it, you know, bring it down to minutes or even seconds. Then there's that mean time to respond. It's one thing to detect an adversary operating or attacking your infrastructure or who has already compromised your infrastructure. It is something completely different to be able to respond and contain that adversary. So those two terms are key when it comes to, you know, any security practice, but especially when it comes to MSSPs and MDRs, which are always working, and that is something we do on a daily basis. We are always trying to figure out a better way to shorten the time to detect and the time to respond. And going back to my earlier slide about process and having robust processes as part of your security strategy, as part of your defense in depth strategy, is absolutely crucial. I put this slide together because this is actually something that we have a conversation with, you know, we end up having conversations with our clients very often about their policies and standards, and we are, through our advisory practice, helping clients very often build their policies, standards, guidelines, and so forth, various types of documents that they use for compliance and other needs. There is clearly a difference between policy and process. A policy is a high-level statement about your security objectives and how you want to, what do you want your security to be, right? That is not, it does not mean that by having a policy document that states some high-level objectives, you now have a process in place to actually accomplish it. Those are two different things. Likewise, having a standard in place that specifies how a specific piece of technology, a platform, a product is going to be configured or should be configured, that it by itself doesn't mean that you actually have a process for doing so and for effectively managing and securing that piece of technology. So again, policy and standard do not necessarily equal process. The reality on the ground is that most of us, and we see this all the time, most of us or most companies have policies, standards, guidelines in place, but lack solid, well-defined, established, tested security processes. And that is where things really fall apart and break down, because you can have the best technology and really smart people in place, operating those technologies, but if those people do not follow a well-prescribed, well-defined process for monitoring, for first securing, then monitoring, and then responding to incidents, things can get really bad for you. In terms of process workflow, this is looking at it through the, from the angle of MSSPs and MDR practices. In a traditional MSSP model, from the time the managed security service provider detects an attack to the time where some action is taken to contain or remediate or mitigate the threat, the workflow is all manual. So what would basically happen is a SOC analyst would receive an incident, would investigate it within their core stack, and then usually escalate it if it was determined that it is a likely true positive. That incident would then be escalated, usually through email or some other channel, to the client or the client's IT or security staff, who in turn would investigate on their end and eventually take some manual action. That whole process, in some cases, could take days, weeks, and even months. And I'm sure some of you have seen that. Obviously, the mean time to detect and the mean time to respond, there's a huge gap between those two points. Fast forward 10, 20 years, we now have MDR operators, managed detection and response operators, where we have streamlined a lot of that workflow. So when we detect, whether it's our practice or one of our peers in the industry, when we detect where we have a positive detection, a true positive, we will inform our client that a detection has been made, that there is some action about to be taken, but we don't wait for the client staff to take action. We will reach into the environment and take that mitigation or remediation action ourselves. It could mean quarantining a host that we suspect is, for example, infected with malware. It could mean temporarily disabling a user whose identity may have been compromised. It could mean reaching out to a user in the organization to confirm, for example, that they did just, for example, log in from Iran or China, where they are typically expected to be in Virginia. That is something we do as a practice, and it is something that we can definitely do manually. When things get really interesting is when we layer automation on top of that, and instead of calling the user or in our case, our SOC analyst pivoting to your EDR screen or your EDR console and taking some action, manually within your environment, we have now automated those workflows, and those actions take we can shrink the time from detection to response from minutes to seconds or even milliseconds. On this slide, what I'm showing is actually a sample from our own SAC, from our own practice, where when it comes to creating a ticket or searching for threat intelligence, actions that typically take our analyst let's say a minute to perform, we can shrink the time to less than a second. The last point here, the quarantining of the endpoint, again, we are able to shrink the time from detection to response to less than half a second, and that is key. In our experience, dealing with advanced threats, advanced adversaries, and even automated type of attacks, that we see out there. When it comes to cloud infrastructures, for example, the time to compromise, again, that used to be days or hours. What we are seeing now is less than a minute. So from the time your DevOps, your IT professional, the IT professional, your IT engineer spins up an EC2 instance and exposes RDP, some remote access portal mechanism to the outside, to the internet, without multi-factor authentication in place, the chances that that host will be compromised within a minute, within 60 seconds, are extremely high. And that is where automation can be extremely powerful and help you in preventing, detecting, and then responding to those threats. So again, bring it all back to my, to the statement I made at the beginning of my presentation. It can no longer be just the technology. It really shouldn't and should never have been about the technology itself. People and process matter, and they are key in building a strong security practice, strong security capabilities, and should definitely be part of your defense in depth strategy. Now, in terms of how New Era can help, and through our SecureBlu practice, I mentioned some technologies, I mentioned some products, and the different layers that we typically deploy. On the earlier slides that Joe was also showing, under advisory services, we do offer deployment and integration services. So if some of what I was describing here resonated with you, and you think that you have a need and would like to discuss engaging us to help you with deployment or integration of some of your tools or products, maybe something that you have planned for 2023, that is definitely a service that we provide and can help you with. When it comes to managing of that infrastructure, again, if you are lacking the people or skill sets to effectively manage those technologies, that is something we do every day, and our managed security infrastructure practice is focused on that. And then obviously the MDR practice itself, I talked about the different types of environments that we secure and have capabilities to respond in. That is also something that we'll be very happy to discuss with you. Joe, over to you.
Wojciech, thank you very much. I'll add a few comments for color here. I would, Wojciech talked a lot about automation orchestration. I would say that the same challenges that you all are facing relative to, staffing and shortage, a lot of folks in this space that provide these services are also facing those challenges. One of the advantages that Wojciech and team have created in developing this platform is through the automations and orchestration. So for those out there maybe utilizing services, you might be seeing challenges, support related to staffing or growth in those organizations. So I guess having said that, if orchestration automation are something of interest, as Wojciech said, we can definitely provide those services, and I'll invite you to go to the website for past events. There are a couple webinars specifically on those topics. So Wojciech, if you don't mind, we'll get to these two offerings in the post-webinar, you'll see an email. There's two offerings. One, vCISO consultation would be very much in line with what Wojciech was talking about. So a 30-minute conversation with a SecureBlu expert, and we're going to talk about your current defense in depth strategy, and perhaps look at high-level topics to improve what that posture could look like. And then to the right, we are extending to those people attending today a free vulnerability assessment. And as you can see on the screen, it's up to 5 external IPs, and you will receive from that engagement an executive summary, the detailed findings and report, and perhaps most importantly, again, a meeting with a SecureBlu expert to review those, and we can help you guide based on priority and what's important to you in your environment. Remediation services would not be included, but we can certainly talk about that if needed moving forward. So I urge you on the feedback form to check those two off if that's something you are interested in. With that, Wojciech, I don't have any questions, and I want to thank you so much. I think the content was very timely, very relevant. I want to thank you for everything you provided today. And for all that attended, thank you for spending the 45 minutes or so with us. And Wojciech, do you have anything in closing you wanted to leave with the group?
Thank you, Joe. Again, we are, as New Era, the secure practice, we do provide services, and we've highlighted a number of offerings. As you are considering your defense in-depth strategy and your security journeys, we are here to help. Feel free to reach out, and there will definitely be information following this webinar where you will have a recording and also contact information to reach out to us if you would like to continue the conversation. Thank you all.
Great, thanks, Wojciech. Take care, everyone.